Coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware, AMD's Zen Architecture exposed, 3D print your own parts for your ASUS motherboards, 3x faster Wi-Fi, meet MIT's MegaMIMO, and the best power supply ever. All that and more coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twitch.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 378, recorded August 25th, 2016. The best power supply ever.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Braintree. Mobile app development can be complex, but integrating your payments no longer has to be. With Braintree, your business can accept nearly every type of payment from any device with just one integration. Learn more at braintreepayments.com/Twitch. And by Tracker. Tracker makes losing things a thing of the past. Pair Tracker to your smartphone, attach it to any item, and find its precise location with the tap of a button. Visit thetracker.com right now and enter promo code TWITCH for 30% off your entire order.
Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, Twitch's weekly show. The names are bringing you the most useful, most informative, most engaging, most delightful, and yes, the most chocolatey flavored technology hardware coverage available in the known universe and any other universe, known or unknown. Take that,
That's
Ryan.
a good claim. That's a claim, especially the chocolatey part, because I don't remember the last time I ate anything that had chocolate in it, to be honest with you.
This is so many terrible directions I could take that last statement you just made, but I will not take any of them. Actually, I was looking at a contract recently, and it was one of those known and unknown universes and ulterior planes of existence and stuff. I don't really know what crazy lawyer added that to that contract, but I like the idea that, I'm legally bound in unknown universes. Also, this is an OptiPack. Just going to leave that right there. Okay. In other completely random notes, it's an interesting week for hardware news. Not just because I'm playing around with Ultimac iPACs for main boxes, but it looks like the Zen CPU. So Hot Chips was last week, which was kind of the big annual gathering of chip manufacturers and chip enthusiasts, which is chip analysts, probably a more accurate description of that. Josh did a write-up on what's going on with the Zen. Is it really ground up? I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, the talk they did at Hot Chips was significantly more in-depth than the one that they gave at IDF, I guess down the street from IDF is how you would put it. It is a completely from the ground up redesign, right? If you look at some of the block diagrams of what they're showing for Zen so far versus what they look like for Bulldozer and Steamroller and all the other, all the Bulldozer derivatives, essentially Bulldozer to Pile Driver to Steamroller to Excavator. Yeah, there it is. Things have changed quite a bit. And actually that next slide down kind of gives you a very good kind of general overview of what is changed, right? Now, everybody's going to have a different level of understanding of what all these different things are, and trust me, I'm not as good as Josh is at this either. But like you can see, there's three main categories: the core changes, the cache changes, and the power improvements. And if you look at the core side, the keys to this are, I think, the 2 threads per core, right? So if we look at what Intel hyperthreading is today, that's like their brand for essentially what is a technology that's been around for a while, SMT or SMP, simultaneous multiprocessing, simultaneous multi-threading. They are implementing that now in their processors for the first time. They had not had that before. And in fact, Bulldozer was the other way around. They had these things called modules that they listed as 2 cores, but their argument could be made that they were actually 1.5 cores apiece because they shared floating point units between integer compute blocks, right? So it wasn't quite 2 of everything. So now you have multiple threads sharing resources. And obviously, as we've seen with Intel's implementations, it's not like you get 2x the performance or anything, but you're going to get improvements and you're going to get vastly improved efficiency of total workflows, right? Multi-threaded workflows, because you'll be able to fill up that processing pipeline and more stages than you would otherwise. They talk a lot about having branch prediction and misprediction changes in there, which is for x86 processors is kind of the thing you focus on when you look at single-threaded IPC. That's essentially, if then else statements and how you get around that type of stuff. They go into a micro op cache, an op cache and a micro op. This is the first time AMD's had micro ops as well, where they're going to do on-chip fusing of operations as they come in, so they can more efficiently get them through the compute architecture itself. They talk about how many retire queues and load queues and store queues you have and all that on the core side. Cache, you're looking at up to 5x bandwidth increase internally between the L3 cache and a core. And that's an improvement over what Bulldozer had, right? So, and then just talking about larger caches, better prefetching, faster, fewer cycles to load from cache. A 5x improvement in anything is obviously a pretty dramatic uptick.
Big deal.
Yeah. Now, that's not going to mean 5x performance improvements in code, obviously, but it is part of all of these aggregate systems are being built from the ground up, based on their prior knowledge and obviously what they've learned since then. And it results in that 40% IPC performance uplift that we talked about, a little bit last week as well, in terms of how impressive of a change that is in a single generation to go from. We talked about it a little bit last night. Intel saw a gain like this when they introduced the Core processors, right? When they went from Pentium 4, where they hit that frequency block and they couldn't go past it anymore, and they thought, oh no, we have to change the thing. So they came out with the Core Duo, Core Series, Core Duo, Core 2 Duo eventually, right? That is where they saw that huge jump over. Since then, we've seen more modest gains, right? Sandy Bridge probably being the next biggest increase in IPC from them. But, you're talking in the order of 2 to 7% on a generational basis. Here you get the 40%. And I predict and I hope that what we'll see in Zen Plus architectures is you'll see that 2 to 7% increase as you go. If you want more details on kind of the architectural side itself, it's worth it to go look at this article that Josh put together. Run through the slides, read through his analysis of some of the slides. He'll if the idea of learning about decoupling branch prediction, TLBs, which is translation look-aside buffers, means anything to you, if you've taken any kind of electrical engineering course that looks at microprocessors, you're going to find some of this stuff interesting. Even if you don't fully understand it, you'll kind of understand the logic of why they maybe went down that path. So it's an impressive part, and it really is fundamentally different than anything they've ever done before, and that was necessary in order to really make them competitive this time around. It looks like the one kind of interesting verbiage change here is they had modules before, which were 2 cores, arguably 1.5 cores, and now they have rebranded their it's called a CPU complex. It's 4 cores connected to an L3 cache, right? So the 8-core version of Summit Ridge will be 2 CPU complexes, on the same die, essentially. So this gives you an idea of what their flexibility is in terms of creating smaller and bigger chips. They did talk about a 32-core, 64-thread server-based processor, whose name escapes me right now, but they showed that at the Zen event last week as well, right? So they still have this modularity that allows them to shrink and grow total die size and total compute capability, but it seems to be more intelligently engineered this way in terms of how they combine the cache, how they combine the cores in there, and then again, the evenness and the distribution of the architecture inside that core is really improved. So it's pretty interesting. They even got like a diagram that shows you the SMT overview of, like, if you want to know what blocks are shared and which blocks are competitively shared and how algorithm priorities work. And if not, it's nice to know in summation that the first bits of details look impressive. Josh seems to be impressed by what they've done, and AMD will have I think they're going to have another architectural reveal, maybe a little bit more detail or some other side features that they haven't discussed yet at the Supercomputing Conference, which I think is in November, which would be another nice time for us to learn more about it, get more excited about it in preparation for the January, February release of Zen processors. So good stuff if you want to get into the deep dive goodness of CPUs like this. Yeah.
Deep dive goodness is a good thing. I mean, it's amazing because, you know, a couple of years ago, AMD had essentially given up on the high end. They're like, we can't keep up with Intel. And then all of a sudden, pretty much out of nowhere, we're back. You know, is part of this, you know, is this a return to, you know, trying to take over more high-end or mainstream or high-end desktops? Or do you think they are doing this to hold on to their console business? Or is it just to be competitive, period, in the way we haven't thought of them as being competitive in a while?
Just with Zen in general?
Yeah.
I mean, so Zen, the way they talk about it, the architecture will scale from mobile APUs to server class parts. Now, everybody likes to make that claim, and AMD made that claim in the Athlon days. They made that claim in the early days of Bulldozer, right? Intel still makes that claim today, and it is very, very difficult to do to make the architecture that works in a machine like this, right? An ultra thin laptop that also works perfectly in a server without some inefficiency somewhere along the way.
Right.
Zen is a necessary move for them to even stay relevant in the CPU space. I think the console business would probably be safe for another generation or so, even if they made no changes, just because their graphics infrastructure is so much better than the other, than what Intel could put together in terms of integrated graphics with a CPU. But, nobody is building systems. Let me pick that back. Nobody is buying systems off the shelf that are using AMD parts anymore, right? Like their market share in consumer spaces is abysmally low, and they're competing on pricing exclusively, and it becomes very hard to be a profitable company when your parts that cost about the same to manufacture now, right? The design side is done, but you still have to pay to have them made, right? If you have to discount it so much to remain performance competitive with Intel, it becomes a losing battle, right? So Zen is going to be necessary for them to make headway into this desktop space. And what they really want to get into, like they're going to release first for the enthusiasts because it's easier to do. If you put out a 120 watt TDP part, they'll accept that. We take it. We love it. Whatever, make performance acceptable and we'll be good. They want to get in the server space, right? Like that's where the profit margins are, is in the data centers. So that will be for sure the second place. They say that Zen will find its way into notebooks as well. That I'll have to believe it when I see it, right? How low power can this architecture be and how efficient is it compared to all of the work that Intel has done now through, Haswell, Broadwell, Skylake, and upcoming Kaby Lake to make the most efficient processors for notebooks and tablets and stuff like this. So they have a lot more to prove on that space. I think it's a much more difficult avenue to get into than enthusiast desktops.
Well, at least they have something that looks like a reasonable path at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Path, period.
Yep.
Seasonic Prime 750 watt titanium power supply review up on PCPer.com. We haven't had a power supply in 3 or 4 weeks, I think it feels like.
Yeah.
Perhaps not that long.
Maybe.
This almost looks like a fanless power supply.
It is not a fanless power supply.
Okay.
It is
incredibly stylish.
Yeah, actually, it is. It's interesting. So Seasonic is probably the best, least known manufacturer of power supplies. And I don't say least known. People know who they are, but they make more power supplies for people that you wouldn't think they're making from, whether it be Corsair or whoever. It depends on the model, right? But what's interesting about this power supply, it is the first complete platform redesign for Seasonic, I think, in over a decade. So this is their first digital PWM, their first digital power management system on it. They had been using analog. They had perfected analog power management, essentially, and power distribution. And now they're using a digital-based system to distribute the load across things. And it's 80+ titanium certified. So it's the best certification you can get for efficiency. It's available in 650, 750, 850. So what I would consider reasonable wattage levels, right?
Mhm.
Not 1200 watts, not 1500 watts necessary to get this type of stuff. They have, good features in there like a fluid dynamic fan. It's got fantastic, just electrical qualities like low AC ripple, that type of stuff. Fully modular cable design, multi-GPU tech supported, all that. 10-year warranty, which is awesome.
Wow.
And reasonable prices for the features you're getting, right? $180 for the 750-watt power supply. It is steep. And I think the 650 watts, maybe like 149 or 159. It is steep. One of the interesting things that they do that I think makes this power supply stand out, I think it's on the third page under a detailed look. If you go down to the second image, you actually see part of Lee's testing method, right? The cable on the right is the cable coming from the power supply. The cable on the left is part of how he tests the power supply's throughput. But what you should note is those little zip ties on there that are cut off, yellow, red, black, and blue. Those are actually sense lines coming back to the power supply. And so this is, I think, the first consumer power supply we've seen that does this, that is actually. So most of the time when the power supply is putting out 12 volts, 5 volts, 3.3 volts, it just kind of pushes out the voltage, or it pushes out the current at that voltage, and it's up to the other hardware to decide how to utilize it. These sense lines coming back in essentially allow it to adjust current throughput based on the load of the system at any given time. Right. So if your system is under a heavy load, if it has the capability, it can send a little bit more current through it to make sure things remain stable. And as a result of that, like, I think this is the lowest AC ripple that Lee's ever seen in a power supply being measured under, 60, 70, 80, 100% load quantities.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a really impressive design. And if you look at the inside of it, on that same page, if you scroll down to where it says under the hood, you can see the fan in there unfolded. But like the power supply is empty. Like, it's not empty, but it looks empty compared to a lot of other power supplies that we've seen recently. And this is, again, part of the digital conversion of these power supply units being handled, electronically as opposed to electrically. I guess is one way.
I was laughing because a friend of mine was like, "Oh, these new welders, they don't weigh anything, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Yeah, but they last 10 times as long and they don't weigh anything. So if you're carrying them to a job site, but it's funny, like, it's amazing to realize how much very ground level basic technology has changed in terms of how voltages are handled and regulated. I mean, like, nobody thinks about stepping regulators until they realize there's no heat coming off of a device the way it used to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's there's just a couple of points in the power supply that I thought were interesting, worth talking about. It's not a cheap power supply, but in terms of quality, I mean, Lee doesn't, give out the Editor's Choice Awards very often. Again, 10-year warranty on it, and some of the best kind of just electrical results that he's ever seen in terms of noise levels, ripple levels, those types of things. And if you're building a reasonable system for 650 watts, where that's enough juice, $159 is the price tag. So it is expensive, but it is one of those parts that will mean the life and death of your components many times, right? Not saying that other power supplies are going to fry your hardware, but you just
when you absolutely positively have to have the best source of power for your processor. Well, I mean, it's also like coming back to the 10-year manufacturer's warranty. There's two ways of looking at it: a 10-year or a lifetime warranty for a product. Either the manufacturer thinks it'll never break, or they have so much margin they'll just keep throwing replacement parts at you. Over and over and over again. And this looks to be the former. They don't think it's ever going to break, rather than the latter.
That's pretty awesome. I would agree. And I think we'll see probably Seasonic is going to keep this technology to themselves for a little bit, but I think you'll likely see some of their OEM partners want to adopt this digital platform, specifically because of how well it's been received by reviews like Lee's. So I'll be curious to see how pervasive this tech kind of becomes by next year's CES, I guess. which is
It's
not that long from now. Not that I'm going to bring it up for you in particular, Patrick.
No, I started planning for CES several weeks ago. It looks like the Seasonic's currently selling for titanium, selling for $222 on Amazon.
Yeah, Newegg has them at the MSRPs. I'm just looking here now.
I was just about to say MSRP
150, 170, or 209. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's, and the 850 watt tops out at $209. So, man, I'm getting a little frustrated that some of the prices on Amazon have not been what they could be lately.
100% agree. I prefer to go to Amazon for stuff just for
Free shipping
reasons and stuff. Yeah. But the whole reseller issue, like side reseller issue is the thing, right? Because those power supplies are shipped and sold by JF3 Technology.
Good old JF3 Technology.
Exactly. They're my second favorite place to shop at. So it's just,
Well, as long as they're verifying it and fulfilling it. This also makes me wonder, like, okay, let's see availability on GTX 1070.
Yeah.
Just because I'm in the mood to be punished. Hey, $429, $439, $449.
It's not awful.
No.
I think you got to look at it this way.
In stock several days from now.
The people that shop at Newegg tend to be more technically oriented. They would recognize more easily, I think, if the pricing was out of whack.
Sure.
Whereas Amazon reaches a much larger audience. So in general, third-party resellers can go on there, sell stuff a little bit higher, and assume that people won't, price check other places, right? So I don't know. It's tough with computer components because chances are people are buying computer components. You should know what the hell you're buying, but
one would think.
You never know. Yeah.
GTX 1060 prices are still all over the map, from $270 up to $300 and change. Oh, wait.
Yep.
I've got a Zotac GeForce GTX 1060 Mini, 3 gigabyte, selling for $199 on Newegg.
That's good. That's sticker price.
There's no mini version of the 1070, is there?
Not yet. I don't know if there will be or not. There should be at some point, but I haven't seen one yet.
I can dream. That would be the card for my super tiny micro ITX build.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So Dell sent us in a 7000 Inspiron 7000. I should say Dell 13 Inspiron 7000, basically the 13-inch version of the Inspiron 7000. And, of course, what makes it a 2-in-1 is the fact that you can fold it over.
Right.
Some reviewers were like, well, it's not really a 2-in-1 because it weighs 3.7 pounds. And despite the fact that it looks like a tablet and it behaves like a tablet, that's just not a tablet weight. So people get cranky when they're reviewing products.
True.
But what was kind of interesting for me was looking at it because it has fundamentally the exact same processor as the current gen Dell XPS 13. And it's not NVMe for the hard drive, but I started trying to figure out, like, well, similarly configured, you can't quite get the exact same configuration. But I don't know if you can see that strip hanging up above on the top. So the 7000 is bigger physically, as a larger footprint than the XPS 13. And one of the biggest differences, if you take a look at the screen on the 7000, which would be much easier to see if I actually had
something on it.
Well, I'm also, looking at the wrong computer because they're both shiny and silver. But if you take a look at the one of the big differences is, of course, do you see the giant bezel?
Yeah.
It doesn't have the Infinity Edge technology, but so you've got a big frame wrapped around your monitor, which isn't that big a deal, but also your webcam is up on the top here instead of at the bottom. That's like my one complaint about the XPS. The XPS is a fantastic computer, but the webcam is down here, so I find myself carrying around a web camera so I don't end up sort of with the nostril effect looking at that.
Yeah.
But when you start looking at them, right, performance is going to be very similar. You're going to have some faster I/O on the on the XPS because it's an NVMe SSD instead of a standard SATA SSD. But what I didn't realize until I started popping this thing open is that you can replace the memory on this with GDR4 SO-DIMMs. You can replace the storage on this with another M.2 drive. It is thicker than the XPS at one side because the XPS tapers down with that carbon fiber body. And this one actually has HDMI built into it. Other than that, it's pretty much the same collection of ports that's on the Dell XPS. Big difference along with that bezel around the screen is the XPS is 3/4 pound lighter. I think it's like 3.2 pounds to 2.75 pounds, so I'm rounding a little bit there, but it's a little bit bigger, 3/4 pound heavier. But performance-wise, it's going to be dramatically similar. One of the things the XPS offers that the 7000 doesn't offer is a option to go up to a higher resolution like QHD screen, which I particularly love because I've been using higher resolution desktops, and using 1080p on a laptop was driving me crazy. But if you're talking about for $750, the Inspiron 7000 2-in-1 functions as a 2-in-1. It's a Core i5 processor, 8 gigabytes of RAM, a 256 gigabyte SSD, and a touchscreen for $750. And a similar configuration on the XPS is going to run you about $1,100, give or take. You can kind of have, either a touch, if you do, it's because of the, you can either have a touch screen or a no touchscreen version for like $1,000 or a touchscreen version for $1,100, give or take. I'd have to double check that, but I couldn't do exactly the same. I couldn't do exactly the same configuration based on the current options on the Dell store, but it was about $250 to $300 delta between the two. But that should not really impact day-to-day performance or anything, but applications where it's doing a ton of I/O to the hard drive. I thought that was interesting. Build quality's nice. It's not as fancy as the XPS, but the keyboard feels similar. The trackpad feels similar. I'm guessing the motherboard is almost exactly the same except for the firmware. Build quality is outstanding on the 7000. It's just bigger and heavier, and of course has that hinged form factor to do the 2-in-1 thing. So those are available now. And then, on a completely unrelated but related note, it looks like Chromebooks have outsold Mac laptops for the first time.
Huh.
So, I don't think that particularly matters, but I thought it was an interesting headline. So,
right.
Just something to think about there. But, it's also amazing to realize, based on a thread conversation I was in with several people, how many students now and how many school districts are using Chromebooks exclusively for their student populations. But, yeah. Verge has a good write-up. Well, IDC doesn't typically break out Windows versus Chromebook sales, writes Tom Warren. IDC analyst Lin Huang confirmed the milestone to The Verge. Chrome OS overtook Mac OS in the U.S. in terms of shipments for the first time in first quarter 2016. The Chromebooks are still largely a U.S. K through 12 story. So 1.76 million Macs shipped in the latest quarter. And Dell, HP, and Lenovo sold somewhere around 2 million Chromebooks in Q1 combined. So, interesting stuff if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. We should take a moment to thank our sponsor, Braintree. Oh, my goodness. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware brought to you by Braintree. The next week, there could be a whole new way to pay. It's been happening a lot lately if you've been paying attention. Could be the next Bitcoin, the next Apple Pay. Fortunately, Braintree's full-stack payment platform is easily adaptable to whatever the future holds, so you can adapt easily, too. Accept everything from pounds to PayPal to that next big innovation from any device with just one integration. And when that new payment method comes along, all you'll have to do is update a few lines of code. Doesn't that sound nice? No late nights, no complicated recoding, no stress about staying ahead of the curve. Braintree Payments is here to help. Simple, secure payments, code you can integrate quickly. Braintree Code supports Android, iOS, and JavaScript clients. They have SDKs in 7 languages: Net, Node.js, Java, Perl, PHP, Python, Ruby. They are covered no matter what your shop is using. And by people that code, I am told this is elegant code with clear documentation. Braintree gives you an easy way to accept multiple payment types with one integration. Integrating Braintree into your app is as easy as inserting a few lines of code. Doesn't that sound nice? Yeah. Do yourself a favor. Learn more at braintreepayments.com/Twitch. That is braintreepayments.com/TWICH. Man, that sounds nice. Just a few lines of code. Get it sorted. Braintree is there for you. We want to thank them for supporting This Week in Computer Hardware, and want to ask you to take a look at braintreepayments.com/Twitch if you get a chance.
Indeed.
Oh, boy. A new perspective on multi-GPU memory management. Are we finally going to be able to properly share memory across multiple cards simultaneously in Crossfire and SLI?
No,
That's
not
the
at all.
dream, right?
No,
That's not the dream? Or that's not what's happening?
It's definitely the dream. No, this is it. So this is not a story reporting on some brand new process or methodology for GPU memory. Instead, this is a animation slash video that we put together. Scott Michaud did all the animation work for this and actually wrote the script, and I just was kind of the lazy guy that did the voiceover. And what we wanted to do was we're trying a new way of explaining things, right? So GPU memory management is multi-GPU memory management is very complex, right? And there's lots of ways that it's that you can do it now. There's lots of ways that it's changing, or there's lots of ways that it is changing into with DirectX 12 and Vulkan. And so we wanted to figure out a visual way to explain the process of what's happening, why it's complex, and then how technologies like DX12 and Vulkan and their multi-GPU implementations can really help things. So it's really just a explanatory part of the situation, right? About how queues work. Like in this portion right here is talking about how in legacy code or in legacy things, you could only distribute code from one pipe. And now with things like Mantle, DirectX 12, Vulkan, now you can distribute information to different GPUs through multiple pipes. It makes things more efficient. And there's a lot of detail in here, and I think it's very well explained. If you want the transcript is in the PCPro.com document, but the video is embedded as well, and I think is a more it's more efficient and I'd say more entertaining way of getting said information into your brain as well. So it's actually just something we are trying out for the first time to see if people like this type of content distribution, like this type of content creation. Yeah. No, this like customs animations. It's expensive to do. He just used Blender. Like none of these. There's not a script that said, "Hey, import a video card." Like he had to build these video cards in 3D and do all these animations manually. So. If you guys like it, let us know.
For animations, I like it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, yes.
But I like
obviously
pictures.
Content reuse is obviously important for us going forward if we do more stuff like this. But yeah, it's curious. And so far the feedback on YouTube and in the comments has been pretty positive. So we'll see if we can make it work from a financial perspective on showing some more cool stuff. So PCPro.com/reviews/graphic-card/new perspective on multi-GPU memory management. Go check that video out or go over to the PC Per channel on YouTube. Indeed.
And go check that out. And let the man know if you want to see more animations. Otherwise, they're going away, people.
It's just throwing them out.
AMD had a big second quarter. They 18% last year, 29.9% this quarter, this year, and that's up from 22.8% last quarter. If there's a winner, there's probably a loser. NVIDIA was 81% of the market last year, and they are now down to 70% of the markets, which is also down 77% from last quarter. That's big, probably because AMD, sparse as the shipments may have been, dropped the RX 480. There was availability issues with the 1080, the 1070, the 1060. And now everything is in play. I mean, the entire graphics card, the GPU landscape between the announcement of the 1080, the 1070, the rumors of the 1060, the announcement of the 1060, and of course the RX 480, 470, and 460, and the lack of cards. You couldn't buy a card, and you knew that the 1080 was going to spank the 980. So why would you buy a 980? So there was no supply of the new cards. The retailers didn't want to drop the price on the old cards because they were sitting in their inventory. This is all pretty huge. But the other big thing that came out that you pointed out in this article was that GPU sales were down 20% in the second quarter of this year, which I think actually kind of makes sense to me, given that everybody knew new GPUs were coming, and anybody who did certainly wasn't going to buy a new GPU unless they had to. This has been a crazy, like the last 2-3 months, this summer has just been, hey, there's amazing new GPUs. Hey, you can't buy one. Hey, you still can't buy one. Hey, AMD has amazing new GPUs. Hey, there's more or less expensive GPUs coming. Hey, you still can't buy any of them. Is this a permanent shift? I mean, if AMD can deliver the cards, it seems like it would be.
I honestly don't know, and that's kind of the answer I have gotten from a lot of other people in the industry. Like when Mercury Research actually came out with information very similar to this first, and I kind of was like, I think something's wrong with their numbers. John Petty Research came out with kind of duplicate stuff because a 7-point swing in one quarter is enormous, right? For anything, whether it be processors or GPUs or what. And maybe more important is the fact that, as you mentioned, there's a 20% drop from Q1 to Q2. Now, a drop from Q1 to Q2 in GPU sales is pretty normal. It's like a seasonal effect,
10% or something like that.
Yeah, so it was more than double what the average should be. And I'm here. The problem is Pascal launched inside Q2, but Polaris, the AMD's RX 480, didn't launch until June 29th, right? So there should be almost no impact of the RX 480 in these results. So it's almost as if...
Really?
Yeah, it's almost as if nobody bought NVIDIA cards in the whole quarter or something like that. Like all the people that were going to buy NVIDIA cards just didn't buy anything, right?
Right.
And as a result, not only do you have a shift to the AMD side, but you have a shift down in overall sales. Now, keep in mind, this includes budget, mainstream, enthusiast, and workstation class products. And so I don't know if there's some more dramatic impact from the workstation market than normal, but that's a much smaller market than what we're talking about in like an enthusiast kind of consumer space. Right. Or it could just be that people were going to buy NVIDIA cards. They knew Pascal was out, but they couldn't buy it, so they just decided to buy nothing, I guess, for the second half of Q2 and just wait. Whereas people who were buying, AMD stuff either didn't know, that Polaris was going to come out on the 29th, or didn't care, and prices were such that they were comfortable making that purchase decision. And keep in mind, this is on unit sales. This is not on cost, right? So if you sell 3 $100 video cards, that's better in terms of market share than selling one $700 video card. But if you ask either one of those companies in terms of profit, what would you rather sell, a $700 video card or 3 $100 video cards? You'd rather sell the single higher end card, right? So it may just be that 1080 and 1070 were very expensive parts. They sold a lot of them in terms of relative to other parts in that segment of the market. And it explains the huge profit that NVIDIA made in Q2, but also that AMD was selling a lot on the lower end, and that's how they got their market share increased that way. So, yeah. I don't know.
So many variables all moving simultaneously. Yeah, I don't know. I as somebody, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Q3, Q4 look like, especially after the holiday shopping.
Yeah.
Hopefully it looks good for everyone.
I would
ASUS
like
introduces... Oops, sorry.
I would like to think so. That's it. Positive vibes is what I'm putting out, Patrick.
Yes. Speaking of positive vibes, ASUS has just released FreeCAD and 3D source files for you to print out embellishments and useful add-ons for your ASUS motherboards, graphics cards, and peripherals such as the ROG Spatha. And there's a picture on the in the story Jeremy Hellstrom wrote up, a 3D printed finger rest addition to the Spatha. And apparently, gaming motherboards, certain motherboards such as the Z170 Pro Gaming RS Sport mounting points are designed for 3D printed parts. You can use empty M.2 mounting points for the designs that ASUS has made. Nameplate, an extra fan mount, more plastic shielding if you're a plastic shielding obsessed kind of person. I'm kind of fascinated, including big old snap-on covers that you're looking at right now for a GPU. I don't know if you can click on the link to the Edge Up article. I think there was some more. There's a good shot if you click on the link right there to edgeup.asus.com. You can see sort of a link of all of the different 3D printable parts, which is kind of crazy. I'm kind of down with the whole customizability and having the models out there. 3D printable 40 millimeter fan mount for cooling M.2 drives, which I actually think is really, really smart. A 24-pin cable comb. SLI bridge cover you can print yourself, 3D printed finger rests like we mentioned. It's pretty cool. I'm down with it.
I like the idea of this kind of customization. We actually printed one out. I thought it was near me on the table, but it is not apparently. Like a PC Perspective 3D printed logo for an SLI bridge thing, right? So
right.
It's a neat little thing to do if you have a 3D printer, and then there are apparently a lot of services now where you can pay a couple of bucks, have somebody print something for you, and they'll send it to you, or you can go pick it up. Apparently, that's a fairly common thing now.
Getting there.
And so it's an interesting kind of customization method in a market where motherboards become commoditized and the differences between them are harder and harder to distinguish.
Right.
ASUS doing the goodwill gesture of kind of providing these 3D models out there and encouraging customization, I think is really cool.
I like it, people.
Yeah.
Oh man. You know what else I like?
Functional and aesthetics.
Speaking of functional and aesthetics, do you have your tracker? Is one of your trackers with you right now, Ryan?
I don't have my keys with me. No, I have one on my backpack and one on my keys, but I haven't lost any of them. And if I did, I could use my phone to find those items.
Yes, you could. That eloquent segue means this episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Tracker. Smart cars, smartphones, smart homes. Technology has made everything a little smarter, but losing your stuff, your gear, your possessions can make even smart people feel a little less than smart. Tracker has a simple goal. Make losing things a thing of the past. I can verify that Tracker works because I did actually take Ryan's keys with the Tracker on them and hide them in IDF and forced him to drag out the Tracker app. It's really cool. It's a coin-sized device. You can attach it to your keyring, wallets, backpack, bicycle, computers, even your pets. If you can operate a keyring, you can get a Tracker attached to something. You pair it to your smartphone. And you can find its precise location with a tap of a button. Your phone could track up to 10 devices at once, and Tracker is enabled by Bluetooth Low Energy, so the battery is going to last you up to a year. You can customize two-way separation alerts, so you're notified before you forget your item. I.e., if I get more than 20 meters from my knapsack, the alarm goes off, and you don't leave it behind you in the airport. Sounds nice, huh? Lose your phone? It's cool. Press the Tracker button, and your phone will ring, even if it's on silent and underneath the couch. And you can personalize your tracker with a laser engraved message or a custom printed image. Mr. Shrout and I actually have This Week in Computer Hardware trackers with Ryan's face on them. It's awesome. With over 1.5 million devices out there, Tracker has the largest crowd GPS network in the world, so your lost item shows up on a map even if it's miles away. It's really slick. The Tracker app records your lost item's last known location on a map, and when another Tracker user comes within 100 feet of your item, you'll receive a GPS update of your item's location. Tracker Atlas works with your Tracker Bravo or third-party Bluetooth tracker to pinpoint your items on a customizable floor plan of your home. Just ask Tracker Atlas where your item is, and you will instantly get an answer with no need to search. Tired of losing stuff? You tired of waiting for somebody to find their keys, maybe? Tired of having to figure out where that backpack went? go to the tracker.com, THETRACKR.com, and never lose your possessions again. And just for our audience, if you're under the promo code TWICH, that's TWICH, you will get 30% off your entire order. That's THETRACKR.com, promo code TWICH, 30% off your entire tracker order. People, take advantage of technology. Stop losing things. It's nice. Try it. Please. I beg you. And we want to thank Tracker for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. MIT has found the answer to faster internets.
Great.
Yeah, no, it's actually interesting. I got into an extended conversation about this with the crew at Tested yesterday. I got to do the Tested podcast, and it's interesting to watch the reports on this because some of the news articles are claiming anywhere from like 3 to 10x improvement in performance on Wi-Fi. And MegaMIMO or MegaMIMO sounds kind of ridiculous, like a Japanese video game, a side scroller. But what the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab noticed is MIMO's cool. MIMO's cool. I suddenly can no longer remember how to say MIMO. But there are incredible complications with interference because you're using multiple radios simultaneously, especially when you start using a lot of devices. So their idea is to coordinate multiple access points, quote, at the same time on the same frequency without creating interference. It's been interesting because I've been playing around with Ubiquity Labs Amplify. I got an Eero. I'm borrowing from a friend to compare that with the mesh networking, where they essentially create coordinated multiple access point networks inside your house. Mesh networking, we'll call that, which means it operates very similarly to a commercial Wi-Fi installation. And the crew at MIT says, look, you can't just keep throwing transmitters at the problem because, quote, they will all still be interfering with one another. So their idea is that they're going to coordinate the communications on the access points so the access points communicate to individual devices on the same frequency. And their claim is that they can transfer wireless data more than 3 times faster than existing systems and that they can double the range of the original. And it's one way to fight the crunch in bandwidth or spectrum, because we've auctioned off so much of the spectrum and there's a couple of very, very narrow bands where all the things have to operate, including, microwave ovens, RC cars, Wi-Fi, all sorts of other stuff. But, I'm curious. They say it's going to be, in product soon. I would be very, very curious to see if their technique for coordinating multiple transmitters, is going to deliver the kind of performance improvement they are claiming. And they're also one of the things they're saying is this is really for like campuses and large buildings, large IT rollouts. I think it's less of an issue in the average home than it is, say, if you're in an office building with 100 people sitting in one room. So,
right,
interesting stuff.
Yeah,
Have you heard? Has there been any rending of clothing or gnashing of teeth around the PC Per offices over T-Mobile's new plans?
Not really. So I'm trying to wrap my head around. Is this the T-Mobile One type
One
thing? Okay.
Unlimited data, unlimited talk, unlimited text. First line $70. Second line is an extra $50. Any additional lines after that are $20. So if you have umpteen people in your family, this may be the deal of the century. The trade-off, right, is that all video playback is going to be 480 pixels resolutions. Yeah, if you're on Wi-Fi, it's not going to change. But if you're streaming to your phone, now I admit, like, I don't have issue watching 360p video on my iPhone, but I'm not running like a 6.5-inch Quad HD monitor on that. The thing that for me really sucks is that if you tether on your phone to your laptop, which I do constantly, it is the primary reason I have like a 25 gigabyte data plan right now, you are going to get 2G performance. which is useless. And you have to sign up for auto pay, which is less of a big deal. But
yeah, I think, I don't know. Is this their only plans now?
They're
or
pretty
are they...
much, well, moving forward.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
No, I use tethering a lot. So for me, yeah, that wouldn't work.
Yeah. For $15 a month extra, you can get tethering up to 5 gigabytes. And if you want HD video playback, you can get, for $25 a month, you can get HD video playback. And this, by the way, is also up to 26 gigabytes, and then they'll start tethering you.
Not tethering you. They'll start,
yeah.
Throttling you.
Throttling.
Yeah. If they start tethering me, that's a different issue we have to worry about.
Tether, Ryan. What?
I have a feeling that for the vast majority of people, this is actually good. Like if you're a family of 4, right, $160 a month for everybody to have unlimited talk, text, and data essentially is good. And if you're never tethering, that's fine. Right. The 480p video, I'm probably fine with that too. Although I would be fine if I just had the option on when I watch YouTube videos on my phone to choose what resolution I'm actually going to play back in, as opposed to it just kind of adapting. I don't know. I feel like we're all going in the wrong direction with all this, right? So T-Mobile was one who had the like, oh, you don't pay data for YouTube and Hulu and Netflix, right? Like it doesn't go against your data cap. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was cool. And then it was like they had the same resolution restrictions on that, I assume, too, right? I guess it's fine for this to be an option out there, but if every carrier did this, I think this would be bad, right? Yeah. I'm on Verizon. They're more expensive, but they released new plans recently that were like, I called them when I was out at QuakeCon and I had an issue with, I don't know what the hell my phone did. It went through like 8 gigabytes in a day, and nobody has any idea why. But they said, actually, as it turns out, we can get you a plan that's $15 cheaper a month, and you go from 10 to 16 gigs of data, and you don't have to worry about this issue. Like we don't have to worry about
how that can happen if you update the operating system on your phone, or if you leave the hotspot. Like I left the hotspot functionality on my iPhone attached at one point when I was transferring pictures and updating. It's you can do it.
Yeah. I was surprised. Like it was funny. I was getting the text notifications. It's like, you've used 1 gig over. And I was like, what? Wait. And I started looking through it. And then like literally 3 minutes later, it's like, oh, you've used 2 gigs over your limit. And I was like, no, turn off the phone. Turn off the phone. My wife's calling me like, are you doing something on your phone? Because she gets the text messages too. So I don't know. So unlimited, but they quote, throttle you after like 20 gigs or something like that. I can understand that mentality. But the other restrictions are stupid, right? If I want to tether and I want to tether all 20 gigs of that data, why is that a problem, right? Then throttle me after that. I don't understand deviation. They don't make as much data on the data through the PC. Yeah.
It's just a way to get more money out of you. It's purely a way to get more money out of you. I mean, I usually
look towards T-Mobile as the guy who is fighting to get me better deals, because they have to, right? Because they're the little guy. Yeah, that guy right there. He's usually fighting for me. But it seems a little odd. But maybe, I mean, like these guys aren't stupid. I'm sure they've done a lot of market research, and they've asked 1,000 surveys about what would this plan make you consider leaving, and they probably got a lot of yeses, right? So we may be the outliers that tether, right? So
yeah,
that's the issue.
We probably are the outliers that tether. I mean, it's been interesting to look at, AT&T just dropped their prices. Verizon just dropped their data prices. And maybe this is a response to that. And, they're probably also looking to figure out how to make the network go farther. And one way of doing that is by reducing the amount of traffic on the network by compressing video data, because video is a huge percentage. And they may also, I would not be surprised to find out they knew a lot about data consumption on tethering, and there were specific reasons for why they didn't want to eat the cost of that, or they wanted to charge you extra for it. I don't know. it's curious. You know, we were, I just, I literally had just had to update my data plan on AT&T last month. Now I'm going to turn around and I'm going to basically turn around and redo it again because it's considerably less expensive for me to go from this like 30 gigabyte plan, or no, for like $10 more I can get 30 gigabytes, or for $10 less I can get 25 gigabytes than what I'm currently getting 20 gigabytes for. I'll lose all of my my rollover gigabytes, but it is what it is, man.
Yep.
So I don't know. I thought it was worth talking about because it's just there seems to be a lot of action in this area. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
One last thought before we go. Cooler Master has introduced the MasterLiquid Maker 92 AIO Liquid CPU Cooler. I'm using that voice because it's kind of stylish and it's kind of atrociously. I can't decide if it's beautiful or ugly. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like I'm so used to sort of the Corsair designs that are very understated, compact. And this is crazy, right? Because it's a liquid cooler and a fan, and it drops on top of your processor, and it's all in one giant brick. It's 99.9 millimeters high, 81.6 millimeters wide, or excuse me, 81.6 millimeters deep. Those measurements are insane. And 99.9 by 81.6 by 167.5 millimeters vertically.
Yep.
So it's like 6.6 inches high. Is that right?
If you look at, it can go in two different modes. So you've got that mode, and if you scroll up to the image up top, you get like a horizontal right there. Yeah, there you go. So hence all the different numbers. It's an odd looking thing.
Yeah. We had
a debate last night about like, isn't the whole point of a water cooler like to separate things out, right? Either make it nice and clean and the radiator's up top, or the other option is to improve cooling performance, right? And it's a very small radiator on there.
Is it really going to improve cooling performance?
Based on the review that I looked at last night, no.
Okay.
Right, like a standard heatsink based air cooler that is just ginormous, like just a big heatsink, performs noticeably better. And this Cooler Master device is quiet, but it's not more quiet than those giant heat sinks tend to be. I'm trying to figure out like what the necessity was for this type of device. If there was a specific kind of small form factor chassis space configuration that they wanted to address with this.
Small. I mean, it's even in the horizontal configuration, it's 4.7 inches high. If you click on the Cooler Master link I just dropped in there and scroll down, you can see them rotating it. I mean, it's available. You can sign up for a pre-order, but there's no pricing information on it. But it's interesting to watch sort of the configurations. If you scroll down to the next window, keep going. There should be there it is. That's the one. And
so it's cool that it does that. Like that's an engineering masterpiece. I don't know why I would want to do that.
I don't know if I'd call it a masterpiece. I mean, scroll down to the next animated window with the blue and the red dots. I mean, it's two fans and a pump and a radiator on two screws and a metal hinge that bolts to the top of the cooling plate on top of your processor.
I just don't. I like the radiator smaller than a radiator that would mount to your 120 millimeter output. The reservoir smaller than it would be if you were using a standard all-in-one air cooler or all-in-one water cooler. The cooling efficiency is going to be lower because of all of those things. And it doesn't look, and it's not like so small that it wows me in terms of how much space it takes up. So I don't know. This is one of those things that I don't quite understand the need for it with all the other options that already exist.
Yeah. Well, somebody thought they could sell them.
Yes, clearly. Yeah.
I will be really curious to see what the price on them is for, because I've skimmed several articles at this point, and I don't see, There's pre-order links on the Cooler Master website, but there is no information on what it will actually cost. Huh.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's just basically a sign-up list. It's not even really a pre-order. So
yeah, the sign up.
I don't know. This may be something. This may be something that they just don't want to send out to people for reviews based on this conversation, right?
But we've been
maybe they surprise us and it's a really, really good product for specific use cases or something, right? And they just need to explain what those use cases are. Because I'm looking at this webpage and it doesn't really tell me why. Compact single frame combining the radiator and pump. Even the tightest case layouts are accessible. Fit both liquid and dual fans easily and snugly. Yeah. I don't know.
Perhaps they work with much larger, smaller cases than I do.
Much larger, smaller ones, yes.
I've got like 44 millimeters of Z in one of my desktops right now. Oh my goodness. I am wiring up our MAME cabinet. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. That is an Ultimark iPack. This is the 2-player version, not the crazy 4-player versions. But if you're thinking about building yourself a MAME machine or arcade controllers, this is the kind of USB adapter that will make your life so much easier. And if you can spend the extra $10 for their pre-configured wiring harnesses, so you don't end up having to cut 60 or 70 different wires, or orders of magnitude more if you are building a desktop system. But that's Ultimark, ULTIMARC.com. I've been using their gear for years. It's good stuff. And if you want to do like trackballs and spinners and light gun games and all that stuff, it is a good resource. So, and cool. They've got some nice deals on them occasionally because they ship from London, and once in a while they'll put together a package where you get a inexpensive Ultimark and the shipping is thrown in for that one. So, but finishing up our MAME cabinet build on TechThing this month. So, what are you up to, man?
Trying to figure out how long it's going to take me to move into the new office. First of all, I still have. I have to tear apart
the studio.
Yeah, well, I have to tear apart the other office first. We took apart some stuff. They had like a little stage, and underneath it is a 10-foot by 10-foot piece of concrete, like the floor where there was no carpet. So I'm trying to figure out. I'm probably going to cheap out and not actually recarpet the whole room for a 10-foot by 10-foot square, and instead put a rug down or get some other carpet or something, or do something to be a little bit more cost conscious on that, so I don't spend $3,000 to carpet out a huge room. Already had to replace the new HVAC system, had to replace the AC compressor and cooling coil, so that was awesome. It's been great. It's been great so far. Hasn't been a money pit at all. Nothing like that. In terms of technology, awesome. Yeah. In terms of technology, I still have that Lenovo OLED laptop that I really, really, really want to spend more time with, and I think I'm going to take that home with me to use this weekend. So,
which model is that?
Soon. It is the ThinkPad X1 Yoga OLED, the one they showed at CES.
Nice.
At CES. Yeah.
The world's lightest 14-inch business 2-in-1.
Yep.
It's good stuff.
It's the screen is awesome looking.
2560 by 1440 touchscreen display with optional OLED technology. Yeah, that's a good looking laptop, dude. And NVMe on PCI Express.
Yep.
Nice. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to call it. We're going to call it the end. It's over. This week in computer hardware is over for this week. We'll be back again next week. You can find more Ryan Shrout in the meantime at PCPer.com. You can find me at avxl.com or techthing.com. Those are the other shows I do. PCPer.com is Ryan's home website and source of many of the stories we read here on This Week in Computer Hardware, and we welcome you to check them out at Patrick Norton on Twitter, at Ryan Shrout on Twitter. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.